Yeah, so for the Summer Games Fest, so obviously Elden Ring was the big news, but they opened the Summer Games Fest show with the official reveal of the Borderlands spin-off, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And before I get into the details about this, because there's actually quite a lot that we know outside of this trailer that they showed, I just want to kind of give you guys a bit of a story on what led up to this that kind of was a bit of a freaky experience for me. So I mentioned I was playing Borderlands 2 this week. And I'd read zero rumors about this at all. And they were out there, but I hadn't seen them and hadn't searched them out or whatever. So I'm sitting there playing Borderlands 2 and I realize, in order to get the weapon that I need, I'm going to have to replay the entire Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. So I'm sitting there playing through the whole DLC. This is a DLC I've not played in like 7-8 years.
I love your framing of I have to. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, just move on. So I'm playing through the whole thing, and okay, I'm like halfway through, and then okay, it's getting late, and Summer Games Fest is going to happen soon. It's like 2:00 in the morning. It's like starting at 4 or something. So I save, get a bit of sleep. Literally, the last thing I'm playing, and then they open the show with a direct full-blown sequel to the DLC that I just happened to be playing. I was like, what the hell? That was the most unexpected thing for me. It was the most coincidental thing. But it's awesome because Attack on Dragon's Keep is one of the best DLCs I've ever played. You look up top DLCs in games, it's generally always in there. Tiny Tina as a character is always been divisive with Borderlands, so you're either going to absolutely hate it and avoid it like the plague, or you're going to be like, oh, that is exactly what I want to play. So basically it's essentially built off that. It takes place after the storyline takes place after that DLC. I don't know how it plays in relation to the Borderlands 3 storyline because I've yet to actually start Borderlands 3. I'm waiting for a lot more of the content to come out. But the trailer was basically a riff off. It started with a riff off Elden Ring, which was pretty funny, but no one thought it was Elden Ring. But they will have actually a character creator for the first time in the series history. So
because you always fixed classes, aren't you?
Yeah, there's always fixed classes and characters. Generally, there's always 4, and they might add a couple more as DLC or as special edition, whatever. But this time it's the first character creator, which is cool because the whole thing about this is that you're playing essentially Dungeons and Dragons equivalent with Tiny Tina as the DM. So it's like bunkers and badasses. So
awesome.
You're actually essentially creating a character. It's the most RPG-like the series has probably ever been, which makes sense. And action skills based on the classes that you build. So it will have a much bigger focus on melee combat. Aside the usual gunplay, obviously Borderlands is all about the guns, but it will have actually a lot more melee combat in this. And grenades have been replaced with an actual magic system, which acts as kind of like mini action skills, which is cool.
That's awesome.
It'll also have the first equipable armor for the first time in the series, as well as some amulets and everything. So this is actually, while it is obviously going to be based on the Borderlands formula, they're making a lot of changes here, which I think is really, really cool. And of course, it also features 4-player co-op, as you'd expect. It's they've got Ashley Birch back as Tiny Tina, which we couldn't have anyone else really probably voice her without a lot of backlash, and she was at the show as well. And it still freaks me out just to think of watching Ash, what you're playing on Destructoid when it first came out, and then to see her career and where it's gone, to be lined up, against people like Andy Samberg or Will Arnett. Like it's awesome. It's great to see someone start from ground up like
humble
that.
beginnings.
Yeah. So I'm super pumped for this because, as I said, I love that DLC so much. It really, it plays off the tropes of RPG so much so that I do not envy the writers having the task to essentially like that DLC is so full of jokes. It's like, what else can you do? It's just absolutely jam-packed. And they're having to create a full experience based on, and they're not going to repeat the same jokes. So they might play off them. But yeah, I'm super pumped for this. It's so far my favorite announcement of E3. But obviously we've got the big conferences still to come.
Over Elden Ring?
Well, that's not an announcement.
Okay, yeah. I have to say, this is why I love the show, because for me, I'm like, what is this for? And when you had this in the run sheet, I was like, whoa, you got this as like a headliner? But I think that's a cool thing. I think that's an awesome thing. And So
You always downplay the Borderlands series. Like, that series has sold, like, over 60 million copies.
Oh, and
it's
like,
massively popular.
Dude, come on. We're all diverse middle-aged white men.
but like Swinny, like, you know, I've said this, that remember when Epic did their research and Borderlands 3 was ahead of like Final Fantasy VII Remake in terms of people's interests. And it's why they ended up paying them like $132 million to secure the rights to make it exclusive. So I understand that's a huge game. I just have never got into it.
It's a really cool game.
But yeah, no, it's awesome. And they're like that. I'm trying to actually pay Swinny a compliment and be nice and go, you know, I think it's a cool thing that, you know, there's diverse. But fuck you, Swinny. I hate this game. I'm going to delete this from the run sheet.
Also, for anyone wondering, they didn't go into any more detail at all in the Gearbox presentation about this. So they showed the same trailer and a couple of still images of some enemy designs. I was hoping for more. I watched it live. So it was actually, honestly, the Gearbox presentation was actually not bad. But I was hoping for a bit more about this. But yeah. Cool.
Yeah, like, you know, and without getting too on the side, I think all the presentations have been pretty decent. Like, I think historically there've been some that have just been incredibly flat, but yeah, they've been pretty decent so far. Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the other highlights of Summer Games Fest. Do you want to start us off with Salt and Sacrifice, Mikey?
Sure. So Salt and Sacrifice is